Kids shows back in the day were dark.
I mean, this is a whole discussion in and of itself. You've got 90s Batman dark, and then you've got, like, SpongeBob dark, which is all colorful and packaged up like it's nice, but then you look into it and you go, oh, that's kind of effed up.
Yeah, that's more disturbing.
Yeah.
By far. Than Batman, which was drawn on black paper. Intentionally, like, crime, noir, detective. That's what it is.
That's like an honest dark.
Batman is actually... DC stands for Detective Comics. So...
Noir.
He's a noir detective.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dressed as a bat. Vigilante. But I loved that. That was my favorite show when I was a kid. Batman, the animated series.
That explains a lot.
My options were a little limited because we didn't have cable television.
Mm-hmm. But
I loved that show.
I've never actually watched it.
You know who my favorite character was?
Robin.
No.
I don't know who.
Poison Ivy.
Oh, I should have known that. You dressed up as her. You have the poster. I mean, she is pretty cool. I've always been a Catwoman fan myself, and given my sexuality, that might have something to do with it, because she's always in, like, tight leather in all the movies.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I have the entire series on DVD.
We should watch it sometime.
We should watch it sometime.
After Naruto and after...
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Alright, should we start the podcast?
Yep.
Hi, Internet. It's Emily SW.
Sam.
And we are here with another episode of the Podcastle.
In my head, fireworks and air horns
pew,
and stuff
pew, pew,
went
pew,
off.
Not to be edited in post. This is not that kind of show. No sound effects, except for the bleeping of the swear words.
The boop? Boop? Those are fun, though.
Yeah,
right?
It is. It is fun. It's like a Star Trek noise.
I think those are the superior bleeps.
Yeah.
Personally.
It's more interesting than the beep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boop.
It's got character. It's got spunk.
Mm-hmm.
It's got moxie. Going back to the noir detective thing.
It's just a default setting, but I like it.
We are not talking about Batman or Star Trek or anything today.
Pity.
No, maybe another time. We are talking about a short story called Allez.
Allez,
sorry.
I think given the context of it, the usage of this word in the story, it is supposed to be the French. Allez!
Yeah, that makes sense. So it is a Russian story with a French title. It was written by Alexander Ivanovich Kuprin. He was born in 1870 and died in 1938. Now, he's best known for novels The Duel and something called Yama, The Pit. So The Duel was a criticism of Russian military conditions because he was part of the military. Spent a lot of time in the military. And Yama the Pit was about a prostitution. Oh, it centers on a brothel, and it was very controversial. But we're not reading those today. We are reading Allez, which is about a circus. Well, it's about an acrobat and a clown.
In a circus.
Yes. I've just given away about 60% of the story.
Yeah, it was a very short.
It's very short
story.
And apparently, obviously, we read the translated version, not in the original Russian. But as I was reading about Mr. Kuprin, apparently Tolstoy was a big fan, specifically of Allez. He thought it was brilliant. Maybe it lost a little something in translation. I don't know. But he thought the prose was just fantastic.
Oh, yeah, if we're talking about the actual writing itself, not having read it in Russian, we're not...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's why they say, when you read a translated work, being a translator for something like that is almost like a different kind of artistry. Like, being an author is one kind of artistry, but then being able to translate the kind of feeling of a work from one language into another is a different kind of art.
I was actually thinking about this because you saw a post I made about the vampire poetry.
Yes, I highly enjoyed it.
I was a little nervous because the few earlier poems were written in German.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what if I can't find translations of these? Am I going to have to try translating 18th century German?
That would be intense.
It would have been very difficult because I don't speak fluent German, first of all. I think you can get by pretty well with a dictionary and a hope and a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
But I was prepared. You would have to do it in 2 steps. Your first step would be to translate the actual, just the meaning of the words, and then your next step would be you'd have to try to recreate the meter, the rhyme scheme, and the nuance. Luckily for me, I did not have to do that. I found translations.
Mm-hmm.
One of the translations was by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who was a poet and illustrator in his own right.
Okay, yeah. Why does that guy get to be so talented? He can make brilliant paintings, he can translate, he can write poetry.
His sister was also a poet.
So there's something in that gene pool.
He did the translation of Lenore that I found, so I had full confidence in it.
Okay, yes. That makes sense.
Long story short, yes.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I know I do like to delve into an author's history a lot of times, but I personally did not find Mr. Kuprin's life to be overly exciting. He was in the military for a while. He did a bunch of jobs, which he actually worked in a circus, which I'm going to come back to. And he did write, which he was very well respected for a while in Russia. But then, if you're familiar with Russian history and a little thing called the Russian Revolution, he had to leave Russia. And so he lived in France for a while, which he hated. He was very sad, turned to alcoholism, his life kind of fell apart, his health fell apart. And so finally, after years of exile from Russia, he was able to return, and he died there. Moving on to the circus thing. So this originally, when I was reading biographies, most of them will just mention, it's like, oh yeah, he worked a bunch of different, like after the military, because basically he resigned from the military after his writing took off, and then he did some other odd jobs. I think he worked at like a railroad or something. But as I was trying to find more information about this, because our theme this year is circuses, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I couldn't find anything except on a website called Marxist.org.
Okay.
It's the Marxist Internet Archive. There is an article that was written in 1960. And this has the source for where they got it, as well as who translated it. But so this is from the Soviet Circus, a collection of articles which was collected in 1967. It was translated by Fana Glagolieva, compiled by Alexander Lipovsky, and it was added to the website in February 2002. So this, it doesn't really give a lot of context, but it appears to be an interview that the author had with Kuprin, because it says, I once asked Kuprin what the source of his undying love for the circus was. The way that Kuprin got into it was his family were animal trainers. His uncle was famous for being able to break wild horses. He was a Tatar. And so he was kind of descended from that sort of lineage. And it does lead to a quote. So his uncle, the horse trainer, was also, like, he loved anything with dancing, archery, strength, tests of strength, stuff you find, like, at a circus or a carnival. Stuff, loved all that stuff. And so then Kuprin says, alas, all my uncle's artistic endeavors ended in naught, and he died a poor man. I will probably die a beggar too, but this does not frighten me, for even though I go hungry, I will have many good memories. Which struck me as interesting, because I read this after I read his little biography, and he did in fact die without very much money. So that just seemed kind of prophetic to me. But back to the circus subject. He wrote multiple stories that kind of centered around the circus. It was a big interest for him. So one of the stories is On the Other Side, which is somewhat autobiographical because Kuprin drew on his own life, his own adventures. But the story is about a junior lieutenant who, for fun, finds a lame old horse with one eye and rides it up a flight of stairs to a restaurant and drinks brandy and then rides down the stairs again. And of this, Kuprin said, you might just say this was simply a stunt, but was it really just a stunt? Try to teach, if you think it was just a stunt, try to teach a one-eyed horse to climb a flight of stairs and come back down as well. The circus trainers and riders I know say this is one of the most difficult tricks to do. Another tie Kuprin had was when he was a boy, he met another boy who was a little older, and this boy grew up to be a famous clown and animal trainer named Anatoly Durov. This kid, now obviously in the article it says Kuprin was 6 and Anatoly was 11. So this is pre-fame, but he teaches Kuprin how to do like somersaults and impersonate people, how to do clown stuff, basically. That he just had a lifelong fascination with the circus. He had some skills. He went through a phase when he was older, as in a middle-aged man, where he was obsessed with juggling. So if you came over to have dinner with him, all of a sudden he would just get up and throw a plate at somebody, but that person would be a famous juggler and would just start juggling at the dinner table.
This seems to be a common theme with carnival authors, where they had some experience with a carnival or circus, or they met someone, and it just, like, gnawed at their brain for the rest of their life. Bradbury was the same way.
Mm-hmm. And Catherine Dunn in Geek Love. I mean, she was obsessed with boxing, not circuses.
And we haven't read it yet, but the author of Nightmare Alley wrote Nightmare Alley because someone explained what a geek was to him, and he found it so horrifying he couldn't get that out of his head.
That's intense.
Circuses aren't supposed to be haunting.
No.
But for some reason they are.
Yeah, and I also feel like the obsession is a really interesting aspect of all these circus stories. Because I think obsession is kind of a common Gothic theme. Well, it's a common theme in a lot of literature. But becoming obsessed either with, like, a person or finding treasure or a vampire or what, like, that's a pretty common. It's also closely associated with madness. Becoming so obsessed with something that it drives you mad.
That is true.
Which seems fitting for circuses. Let's see. He knew another famous clown. Where is it? Okay, so he made friends with a famous Italian clown named Giacomino, who would come to Kuprin's house, and they would visit together. Kuprin's first short story, Allez, this says it appeared in the 90s. It's the 1890s, not the 90s. Yeah, and this article also mentions that Tolstoy loved it. He also wrote a short story called At the Circus, which was also very well regarded by Tolstoy and Chekhov, which is another famous Russian author. I was doing some searching, and I couldn't find it online. So I need to see if I can find it.
Maybe it's not available in English.
Yeah, that was a thought I had as well. Here's a good circus quote. In our enlightened times, it is considered shameful to confess to a love for the circus, but I am courageous enough to do so. Kuprin also had a big dream of there being a school, a Russian circus school, where Russian performers would become famous, kind of like the traveling, like, French circuses or European circuses of the time. And he wanted to see that in, when one will find familiar names instead of foreign ones, like Ivanov, Gibitulin. But that never happened. So I know they will create a repertoire no worse and certainly much better and more original than the foreigners have, because our muscles are stronger. Fate has not bypassed us with courage, and we have patience enough and laughter. Oh, we can laugh better than anyone in the world, because our laughter is of a very special kind.
Okay. You've mentioned reading Russian literature before?
Yes, mostly short stories. I do. Dostoevsky is on my reading list. I mean, I've got so much on my reading list. But I really want to read Dostoevsky, because from what I know of the story, it's supposed to be pretty... I think The Idiots is supposed to be pretty entertaining. It's supposed to be very, like, dramatic. In what, from my understanding, seems like a very Gothic way. Like, very interpersonal drama, very, like, that kind of thing. But I haven't been brave enough to do it yet, because the short stories I've read have been a little grueling, which I think is partially because, they're translated, and they were written a while ago, so the language is a little older. Also because Russian literature tends to be a little depressing.
Which is what I was getting at.
Yes. Because
you have said on this podcast a lot, the Russian literature, maybe it was on this podcast, but when we were watching He Who Gets Slapped.
I think I've definitely mentioned it before, because I had the thought, because I was editing He Who Gets Slapped today, and I was like, I should read more Russian literature and put my money where my mouth is.
Yes, because you say a lot that it often ends in tragedy.
Yes.
And people learn their lesson and then they die.
Yep.
So with that, let's actually talk about this story.
Yes. Yeah, there's a girl who's an acrobat, and there's a clown, and there's a circus, and that's about 60% of the story right there, because it is so short. But she's basically, this is not the circus like Fevers, where Fevers had a gay old time in Nights at the Circus. This is not the kind of circus where you're palling around with your brothers and sisters, like in Geek Love.
But, unlike Nights at the Circus, where the clowns are the downtrodden, the miserable putting on a farce of entertainment. This clown is a famous celebrity clown.
Yeah, he is. It reminded me of in He Who Gets Slapped. He is so famous, he's got his own sign, and he draws in the crowds.
Like that. You know what I was thinking when I read the story? This story is basically He Who Gets Slapped, but the clown is the villain instead of the Baron.
Yeah, he even plays a very similar role to the Baron in terms of... Well, so, very brief backstory. The main girl, the main character, Nora, grows up in this circus, and she's just traumatized. It's basically... we learn that Allez is something that's told to her all the time, and she's basically forced to do all these tricks, dangerous tricks, and train to do the fly off the trapeze and trick ride on the horse and all this stuff, and she's very afraid of it, and she doesn't want to.
Yeah, because Allez means go, get on the horse, do the act, keep practicing, like in a very forceful way, which is how it's being used in this story.
It's kind of is refrain the right word? It keeps... Every other paragraph or so, it's like every other paragraph or so, we'll have a little break. Allez. So it repeats.
Get on with it.
Which, for a story this short, I think it is very effective to have that kind of repetition, because the repetition does a lot of the heavy lifting. Go. Mm-hmm. And, when we get to the end of the story...
It's ironic when we get to the end.
Yeah, but it really does. It's the title of the story, and it also... This... I found interesting because you see this in poetry a lot more than I think short stories, but the title of the story is Allez, and it's also kind of the first line, because when you're reading this short story, the title at the top, is Allez, and then the first line of regular text, like in the first paragraph, is, this was the first word that Nora ever spoke, like learned to speak. So the title is also the first line in a way, which I just found interesting from a form perspective, just because you see it more in poetry because there's less space. So if you have a really good title, or, if your title is part of the poem, especially depending on what kind of form you use, where there's a set number of lines, title is a way you can kind of cheat, get around it a little bit, add a little bit more. That was just something I noticed is interesting to me.
Okay. Well, Nora and this clown have a relationship.
They do. It's not great. It's... Now this is after, so... We begin the story, Nora's a child. She does grow up a little bit. She's not 5, but I think she's like a teenager when they start this relationship, which is still not good.
Well,
it's also not clear.
Because there's also a huge power dynamic difference here as well.
Yeah.
Because the clown, whose name I don't remember.
Menotti.
Because he's a famous, successful celebrity. And I feel like he really takes advantage... Well, even in the beginning, he takes advantage of her.
He does, because he's... What does it say? She, takes care of him, essentially. She does all his chores, helps him undress, helps him get dressed, get ready, sleeps with him.
He's the evil he.
Yeah, he is.
We never really get any other information about him either. But there's not really any room for it in the story.
No, but we do get... In the description of him, he's a clown celebrity, he's very well known for it. Gets paid a lot of money for it. We have this interesting little tidbit. After the performance, he invariably felt done up, and, with a highfalutin bitterness, would say of himself, "Yes, we are buffoons. We must amuse the well-fed public." So, in a way, he is carrying on the tradition of some of the clowns we've read about previously, where he is a commentary. He's commentating on commentating. He is commenting kind of the act of going to the circus to see a clown.
Yeah, they all kind of have a disdain for the public, don't they?
Yes, but I mean, in this case, so in He Who Gets Slapped, as the audience watching the movie, we're meant to pity he. But in this story, that is not the emotion that is evoked by Menotti.
No, but in He Who Gets Slapped, we're also like a third party. So you have the clowns in the performance, and then the audience, and then us as the audience, watching the audience. Because we get all those close-up scenes of that family who are portrayed in a very negative light as, kind of overweight people. You've got, that pig with the fruit apple in their mouth, and they're consuming. The act is something that they consume. Mm-hmm. We're a third separated audience even from that.
Yeah,
So that's where we get kind of the sense that the audience is at wrong here. But in Minotti's point of view it's like he looks down on the audience.
Yeah,
right?
He thinks he's above them.
Yeah.
They're...
But not because of, like, a tragic circumstance or that... You know what I'm saying, right? I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
I do know what you're saying, and I was just about to compare him to Arturo almost, in a sense that he's looking down on the people who come to see him, but that's how he also kind of thrives on the...
Yeah, so you can say a lot about celebrity culture there. The celebrity, the entertainer, their job is to entertain. And I think somewhere along the lines, we forget that the point is to entertain the audience, not for the audience to be like a congregation that worships the entertainer.
Idols.
Yes.
Idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, celebrities get idolized.
Right. But they shouldn't be.
No.
They're the entertainment.
Yeah. They're people. They're literally just people. And in this case, Minotti is just a guy who sings out of tune and puts on face paint and does tricks with animals. And people pay him a bunch of money to do that, and they love him. Meanwhile, as an actual person, he sucks.
Oh, yeah.
He takes advantage of Nora. He doesn't he absolutely kind of just, we're gonna have sex, and that's it. And she's like, I guess this is the thing we're doing, because that's, first of all, she's been in this situation in the circus her whole life where she's never in control of herself. She has to do what the ringleader, ringmaster, whoever is telling her to do. Has to perform, has to do these things she's afraid of, jumping from the trapeze. And so here's just another man to come along and take advantage of her in a different way.
And she knows she's being mistreated because he has other women as well.
Mm-hmm.
But she still never leaves him.
No, she doesn't. She follows him for years, takes care of him, even though he hits her and he isn't nice to her. Even, in private, he's just like, whatever. And then he starts going after another woman, which she doesn't like. She brings that up, and he's like, what are you gonna... Go away. Like, he's just like, I'm done with you. Tries to toss her aside. She comes back, as is often the case in abusive relationships, unfortunately. And he fully tosses her to the side, to the point where, so because he's a famous clown, he has these regular spots that he goes, and he has private rooms there where he can consort with the opposite sex. And she tries to go back in, and the hotel concierge guy is like, you can't go up there, like, he's got somebody else, like, go away. But she goes up there anyway, barges in, and starts attacking the other woman.
Which at this point, that was to be expected, right?
Yeah.
This is a known thing that's been going on.
Before she barges in and starts hitting the other woman, she listens, and she can hear what's going on in there. But then Minotti is still obviously like, no, I don't want you. Go somewhere else. Go away. Nobody wants you. You gotta leave, or I'm gonna have someone throw you out. And Nora says, okay, I'll leave. But she doesn't go through the door.
No, she decides she's gonna throw herself out.
Yeah, so she goes to the window, and now she's afraid of heights, which is established in the Trapeze Act earlier on, where she gets really terrified of jumping off and being thrown around into space.
Not a great trait for a trapeze artist.
No. Well, and she even, earlier in the story, when she's a teenager, she falls, misses the net, and breaks a bunch of... hurts herself. Luckily, she doesn't seriously injure herself. She hates heights. She hates jumping from them, being the trapeze artist, all this stuff. But she goes to the window. She swallows her fear. She gets over it and jumps off and says, Allez, let's go. So she overcomes her fear and dies.
So as with the pattern that you have described with Russian literature, she overcomes the fear,
mm-hmm.
and then she dies. That was the wrong way to overcome her fear. She should have overcome it and left this clown, who's a clown in every aspect.
Yeah.
Left the circus and gone on and started a new life.
Mm-hmm. Started her own circus.
But I guess it wouldn't be Russian literature then, would it?
No. Also, you would need a lot longer of a story.
No, so I guess at the end of the day, the story is about power dynamics, the cult of celebrity, and cycles of abuse.
Yeah, very common theme in our circus reading and watching we've been doing. And yeah.
Other than in Something Wicked, This Way Comes, because we didn't actually get to see the inside of that carnival too much.
That's
we
true.
were visitors in it with the kids.
Yes.
every single one that we've talked about so far with like Knights of the Circus and Geek Love and this story has been about pulling back the curtain on these shows, not in a supernatural way. Like, again, Something Liquid was very supernatural.
Yeah.
But these ones are about the personal dynamics of people who are living together and working together, and the way that people are taken advantage of or misused.
The monstrosity of being human.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how these kind of gilded, painted facades can hide a lot of really ugly, nasty things. Which even, well, first of all, I mean, that will always be true, I think, from the beginning of time until the end of time. But just looking at circuses, I mean, look at, the modern circus and the sorts of, like, animal abuse and things that have, over time, been phased out and made illegal as people became aware of how cruel it was and how cruel the conditions these animals were kept in. But before people found out about it, they were just like, oh, look at that elephant. It's standing. I love it. It's just sad. I came away from this story going, oh, man.
Yeah, you picked it.
I did pick it. It's because I was looking for short stories that had to do with circuses. And I was like, oh, this one's short. It's got a trapeze artist and a clown. I didn't realize it was
gonna be about the darkest depths of human...
Yeah.
No, not really the darkest.
No. One of the dark depths of human depravity.
Yeah. So far, we haven't had a lot of fun times at the circus.
No,
but I guess that's to be expected when your focus is gothic horror.
Yeah. With our focus being gothic, that kind of happy endings are not guaranteed.
No.
We do get closure, just at what cost?
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever read anything that's,
fully a happy ending?
Because there are gothics with happy endings, arguably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we get into more, like, romanticism gothic... Well, because gothic comes out of romanticism, right? The Romantics, and that's the time period.
It's a similar time period.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of doing these podcasts, right? We're learning, we're reading, we're taking you, the internet, along on the journey with us. Mm-hmm. I'm just remembering we were gonna do the whole spiel at the beginning. Like, comment, subscribe.
Oh.
Forgot.
Well.
Oh well. Like, comment, subscribe if you made it this far. Let us know if you have any happy circus stories.
I don't think even any of, like, the modern ones I read have been particularly joyful at the end.
Well, because they're all following in the footsteps of these classics that we've been reading, and these classics we've been reading, these classic circus stories are not jolly. It is kind of funny, though, that a thing that's supposed to bring people so much joy is the subject of so much gothic literature.
Criticism?
Mm-hmm.
Is it making you think about circuses any differently, or was this kind of what you expected?
I wouldn't say this is what I expected, but that's only because I went into this with very little expectations. In terms of the way I think about circuses, no, because the circuses we've been reading about have been so far removed from my own lived experience.
You've never been to a circus.
I've never been. Yeah,
we talked about that on a previous episode.
Well, I just mean, like, my perception of a circus as, like, a modern thing. Very different from all this stuff. Oh my good gracious.
I would say that I'm not really surprised that it's been so down and dour, because when you really look at anything that people do, it's just sad and depressing.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that's actually good in the world. Even when you look at modern entertainment, all the dirt and abuse that goes on, from Hollywood to K-pop.
To internet influencers and their children.
Modeling, acting, singing, doing anything that involves money. Here's the problem. Anything that involves money goes downhill real fast.
Yeah, money corrupts. I guess that's the major moral of all these stories. The second you turn anything for a profit, morals start to become questionable. Warped. That's... The capitalism discussion might be a little heavy. I could go on and on about it. Maybe we should quit while we're ahead on the capitalism.
No, I think that's kind of the thing, though. I think the way that everything goes, and this can go for, like, sports as well, is you have this thing that starts off being for fun. And then as it becomes more popular or more people are interested in it, more people become involved. And then you have people who are looking to figure out how can we make money off of this. You're setting up a circus show. You want people to come and spend money and buy food. And the bigger and bigger and bigger something gets, the more money is being circulated around. There's like a pressure to keep that up and to keep growing.
At a certain point. But I've talked to people where, you should always be growing, you should always be challenging yourself. But growth for growth's sake is not necessarily healthy. No. Like, there's a reason, as living creatures, we get to a certain size and stop, right? There's a reason that tree outside, or a flower, or this cat, yes, you.
She's very small, though. She could have been a little bigger.
But, like, there's a reason that things don't just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow continually.
Because it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And, yeah, it's...
One other thing, too, with a circus, too, there's always a pressure to be bigger and better, to have more dangerous acts and be more thrilling, and...
Well, that's,
and so on.
Oh, I was just reading... Oh, no, you know what it was? I was watching an Allez video on YouTube. She does a lot of the Colleen Hoover book reviews that I like to listen to. But she also does social commentary stuff, and she was commentating... I said it again. She was... She was doing commentary on a documentary that was about an OnlyFans model who, very famous, very successful already, like making tons and tons and tons of money. But in order to get more views and make more money, she slept with 100 men in a day as part of her, like, OnlyFans thing. And in the documentary, it's actually quite sad because, leading into it, she seems like a really nice person. And she's very open and honest and genuine. And then she goes through this whole thing. And then at the end of it, she's very, like, traumatized. Oh, but anyway, so then the point I'm trying to get at is that at the end of Allez watching the documentary about this instance, she looks up that girl to see what she's doing. And, like, a little while after that documentary, and, like, after she, I guess, got over the trauma baggage that it brought up for her, she said it. She's like, I'm gonna break the world record. I'm gonna sleep with 1,000 guys. More than anyone's ever slept with in one day. So, like...
In one day?
Yeah, I don't even know how that's possible. But, I think it was 24 hours or something.
Okay.
But the point of me talking about that was, it's not a circus, but, people are constantly trying to one-up. And literally, like, when she did the 100 guys, like... She was, like, at the end of it, she was, like, crying and talking about how she was kind of, like, disassociating, which is not good. It's not a healthy reaction to be disassociating from something. But yeah, so you would think that would be enough, because she's already rich. She's already making, doing her regular OnlyFans stuff, she already makes, like, $50,000 a month or something crazy, But she's still...
Yeah, the internet does that, too, where everyone has to be bigger and better, and... the most thrilling thing gets the most views, right? The most shocking thing, which is what a circus is based on, is shocking the audience with these inhuman feats and these exotic animals and these fantastic tricks. And even with the freak show, because they're kind of oddities, as they were called.
Uncommon.
So...
Yeah, something you wouldn't see in your everyday life.
Yeah, and you also normally don't see in your everyday life people swinging from the trapeze or eating swords and fire breathing and sword swallowing. Like, it's all meant to shock and awe. And influencing kind of functions in a similar way.
Yeah, I think the lesson here is that we're just all living in a circus right now.
The whole world is a circus.
The whole world is a circus. It's just like in He Who Laughs Last when the clowns are sitting around the globe.
He who gets slapped.
Oh, yeah.
I said he who laughs last was referenced as a line in that movie.
Yeah, it was.
And then I said he who laughs last laughs the laughiest.
That's right. You've replaced the title in my head. He who gets slapped.
Yes, we're all on the spinning globe with the clown.
Well, yeah, because we want distractions from our capitalist hellscape humdrum lives.
We are both the clowns and the audience.
Well, that's deep. We are both clown and audience.
Yes.
The big top is inside of us.
Yes.
Boy, that got philosophical. I don't know if I'm ready to face that epiphany. This requires some thought.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I have a therapist appointment.
Maybe you can workshop that a little bit.
Yeah, for my clown series.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, if this makes it in the episode and you've made it this far listening to the episode.
You're not just weeping at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, I am currently working on clown history, clown deep dive. It's Chapel Roan's fault. I'll explain later.
So if I leave this in, you're going to be obligated. Because the audience will expect it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna do it. Listen, I'm gonna do it. I am so obsessed with clowns right now. I'm scaring myself. Because you know what it... Oh, now I'm just rambling. Have you ever seen, like, clowncore, like, the aesthetic?
Yeah.
And because I love watching any fashion videos, so if something comes up on my page and it's fashion related, I'll usually watch it, even if it's not something I personally would dress like. And, like, clowncore people who do that, all respect. Like, literally, you do you, you look great. But I was like, I don't understand this fascination. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I just didn't understand, and now I get it. Now I understand. Now I'm the one looking up pictures of people doing clown, like, different, like, I should say different kind of artistic sorts of clown makeup, not, like, you know, the grease paint.
Horror clown is also...
Yes.
A subgenre of that.
It is, and I have a lot of thoughts about that as well, which will probably be part of the clown deep dive. Because I haven't even researched it yet, but I already have a lot of thoughts about it, because it is such a common thing. But yeah, the clown in this story, Minotti, whatever his name was.
Not worth remembering.
Bad clown. No, I'm not delving into that kind of clown.
We haven't had... I mean, I also had problems with He Who Gets Left.
Oh, you mean, like, as a person being a weirdo trying to...
just being weird around, you know, younger women.
Yes. Yeah, he was the epitome of take a hint, bro.
Yeah, but he wasn't like Buffo, who was a drunkard and literally tried to murder a man.
No, he didn't do that. He did kind of redeem himself in the end.
Yeah, so I think so far he has been the best clown.
Yeah.
And... Again, Minotti is like the evil version of that. We'll have to do a clown ranking, maybe, when we're done with this.
That could be fun.
We've only encountered those 3 clowns so far. I suspect that there'll be more in movies.
Yeah, because they're very visual.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe there'll be something we could do a year-end wrap-up and just, like,
clown
wrap
review.
up all the clowns.
Rank. Who's your favorite clown?
Yeah, we can do that.
Listen, I'm game. I spend so much time thinking about clowns now. It's horrible.
Alright, so now that we've driven our audience to tears by making them think about the existential realities of the entertainment that they consume.
Okay, we should probably wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay, well, you know, if you have a happy clown story, either just your own personal anecdote, or, you know, if you've read a book about clowns that was nice, leave it in the comments.
Yeah, we might need some cheering up.
Yeah, and if you've made it this far, put a little red ball emoji, like the clown nose, to prove that you made it this far. If you do, you'll get a gold star, because we got real deep there for a second.
Yeah, so hopefully you survived and aren't weeping.
Yeah, and next time...
I guess this is the effect of Russian literature, though, right? This was the point.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to deep think about things.
Honestly, yes. It's supposed to make you think about life.
So,
effective.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Our next short story will not be Russian.
No, it'll be American.
So look forward to that. We'll see you there. Follow us on Instagram. Like, subscribe, do all the things. That's it.
Okay.
Goodbye.